Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Jailhouse Informant. You are locked in for the next probably not hour, but probably, maybe half hour, if that, of the Jailhouse Informant with myself and my co-host, Dr. Christy Sumner.
Hey everybody, how you doing this evening? Thank you for joining us. Hey Vicky, thank you for coming on tonight. So Miranda, we've got a lot to talk about tonight. A
We
lot of stuff
do,
going on.
we do, yeah. It seems like it's been forever. When we're not on for a week, it always seems like it's been in forever.
It really has. We've had so much going on this week. Hey Janet, thanks for joining us tonight. Things have just gotten a little hectic, right? We've got all these different things that we've got going on. Our new schedule's up that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. New displays that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. It's been super crazy hot here, but we're still pushing forward with Ghost Walk. So a lot of stuff to talk about. But last week it was a very fun week for us because we had our special friend Sarah Jane on from she was in from Paranormally Blonde, and then my sister Jenny with Soul Sisters Paranormal, my twin sister, was in, and Sarah's sister Deborah was in. So really fun time last week.
It was kind of a whirlwind. If you missed it, we didn't have a show last week because we had a unexpected cancellation from a guest, but we did the very next night. We did go on Paranormally Blonde, which is on the UNX network, and just a blast. And we got to share some cool things going on with the jail, and we kind of did that leading up to our investigation with Jenny and also with Sarah and Deborah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you said, it was just a great week. We also investigated a very cool house in Rugby, the Newberry house. It was a little bit more quiet than it was here in the jail. We did have, like you said, some very interesting things here at the jail. So, to be able to talk on Paranormally Blonde and be a guest on their show and get to talk to Dee Dee and kind of highlight some of the things that we're doing and share, the jail, the history of the jail. I was really happy with that. I thought that was a really good guest appearance to be on.
Yeah, great show, great ladies. Always a pleasure to be a guest on their show. I know you and I have been on there separately with our respective teams, and any opportunity to, get to share the screen here with you and with the ladies from Paranormally Blonde to be able to share about the location is always just a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Vicky mentioned love the footsteps. So that was one of the things that was so crazy about that night that we investigated here at the jail. It was you and myself and Jenny and Sarah and Deborah. So there's 5 females here. And, we're experiencing some really interesting things really early on in the night. And, some of y'all may have heard us talk about this, but footsteps have become extremely prevalent here. And they seem to happen right at 9 o'clock, which would have been shift change here at the jail. So we do believe we're catching the residual energy of a jailer who's walking on that walk. But, it was very interesting because Miranda had set up 3 different cameras along our upstairs jailer's walk. And we were really able to triangulate where those footsteps were coming from. And it sounds like if you haven't been to the jail and you're not familiar with it, the jailer's walk goes around 3/4 of the jail, and then there's a hallway that really just splits the jail in 2 upstairs. So when you're in the jailer's walk, you come around and there's that junction, essentially a teed off junction that would allow you access to that middle hallway. And to us, it sounds like the footsteps come around the jailer's walk and then kind of shuffle step as they would if somebody's turning to go down that hallway. And so to be able to triangulate that based on those 3 cameras is absolutely fascinating.
It is, and to actually be able to capture it,
Mhm.
on the recorders, because before paranormal teams come and investigate, we always do an orientation and history tour with the teams. And so there's been several times that we've actually heard these footsteps while we're doing the tour. Because it's interesting because the teams, we open the door for them at 8:30. And so between, signing the waivers and getting the bookend process and doing the tour, it's about 30 minutes
Mhm.
is the process. And so we're typically up on the maximum security level around 9 o'clock. And so I know I was up there with Matthew Carter's team. This is just one that comes to mind. I was up there with them. It was right around 9 o'clock. And as we're talking, we hear those same footsteps. And it's like a sticky boot is what
Mhm.
it sounds like to me. You can hear it. And what's actually really kind of creepy about these footsteps is the fact you'll hear them, you'll be having a conversation, and you'll acknowledge the footsteps, and they
Mhm.
don't stop,
Yeah.
and they'll keep going. And that's what's really crazy about it. And so, again, as Christy said, the hallway splits the center of the jail, and you've got two bullpens on each side, and the length of the footsteps, it's almost the exact length of a bullpen. And I know
Mhm.
that night that we were there with Matthew Carter's team and we heard it, it was actually about a quarter of the way through the footsteps. And so we acknowledge it. We actually take off running back there
Mhm.
because I would have sworn, as heavy as those steps were and as realistic with the
Mhm.
sticking sound, I would have thought that somebody had snuck into the jail and was walking. But
Mhm.
to me, it really just shows the residual activity that we have here, and
Mhm.
especially being that we've noticed that it happens at the top of the hour at certain times of the day. So just to be able to capture them on camera,
Mhm.
I think is
Absolutely.
just I'm just thrilled with that.
Yeah, and like we said, on 3 cameras, and I know we've had a lot of people watch the video, and all of them have been very astute to say, "I think I hear an EVP," or, "I think I see somebody." So what you're seeing in there, there were 2, Sarah and Deborah were in that main hallway, but back down toward the other end, essentially the back of the jail.
Mhm.
And then Jenny and Miranda and I were in cells on the backside of the jail, and these footsteps were on the jailer's walk in the front of the jail. So the EVP that you think you hear is actually Deborah saying, "Are those footsteps, or is that someone walking?" I think she says. And then Sarah kind of jumps up and walks towards the sound of the footsteps. Again, the footsteps don't stop, and that's what's
Right.
interesting to your point is they're so residual that we acknowledge them and they just keep right on going, right? I mean, you
Mhm.
hear Sarah at the beginning say, "What is that?" And you hear the first step, and then Sarah's like, "What is that?" And then it continues on, and she acknowledges it again, and they still continue on. And that's just the power of the residual energy that's walking around and literally walking around in this jail.
Yeah, literally. And we actually got it again,
Hmm.
not as long. They were shorter, faster footsteps. We actually captured it later on, but because we had two investigations this past week and we were wanting to get this together fairly quickly, I have not gone through all of my footage because it wasn't quite an hour later, but it was pretty close to an hour later because I know it seemed like it came again right around the 10 o'clock mark.
Hmm.
And that's why we were like, okay, we're going to go back up and sit there at 11, but we didn't
Hmm.
hear it at 11 that night. So
Yeah.
so hopefully we caught those. I know it was a pretty crazy night,
Yeah.
with some pretty cool activity, but to me that one really stands out just because we all heard it, and we had
Hmm.
actually been talking about that. That's why I put the cameras there,
Right.
um, because one, and you've not really shared this, but with a few other people, you saw a shadow figure up there, which is kind of like what the previous jailer had seen as well.
Mhm. I did, yeah, and real quick to Janet's question, is this the first time someone recorded noticed them? No, we notice them all the time.
Mhm.
It's actually the first time we've actually got them recorded because to Miranda's point, they're happening at around the 9 o'clock hour, and that's the time when we're typically either on a ghost walk or a flashlight tour down here on the first level. So we've heard them, but we haven't recorded them yet. So to be able to record them on 3 different cameras, I mean, that's the first for us. And, everybody asks, "Why don't you keep voice recorders running or cameras running?" And we do, but the problem is going back and listening to all of it. It's just, it takes a lot of time to go back through all of that. So we have had recorders up at different times. We just honestly just don't have the time to listen to it. So to hear it in the moment and record it at the same time is pretty amazing. Now back to Miranda's point, about a week ago, I was upstairs. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon because I was closing for the day. And I was up on the jailer's walk, shutting the windows, and I'd shut all the windows and I'd come back to the junction where we heard these footsteps. And I just quickly kind of looked to my right, and there is a shadow mass standing there. And by the time I got my head kind of turned around to kind of briskly walk down the hallway, it had moved and was coming. It hit the wall behind me. So I mean, it was instantaneous how fast it moved from one side of the bullpen to the other. So shadow figures are very prevalent up there. We've not captured any upstairs. We have captured shadow figures down here, but to capture those footsteps, thanks, Janet, to capture those footsteps was really something amazing.
Yeah, and so to kind of tag on to this with Sandra Wells's question, have you all gotten any evidence that indicated who is haunting the jail? We have. We've actually gotten quite a bit of evidence that we've been able to back up with history. The shadow figure that we're seeing on the third floor, this is something that the jailer who was here while the jail was in operation, that he was seeing. And so, I mean, personally myself, I kind of tend to think that the shadow figure is a little different than the footsteps, since I believe the footsteps tend to be more residual. But the shadow figure is over near Jerome Boyett's cell. Both times that people that I've talked to that's seen it, you and then also this jailer, it was in that same area. We've also, been able to back up certain things based on a book that's written here about the jail. We've been able to get several different names. We believe that one of the people who hang out in the kitchen, I think his name is Dan, goes by Chef Dan. We do believe, yep, Roy. We've had that validated by several different folks, Big Roy. And then also Sheriff Richard Ellis. He's one that's actually, I feel like, is very prominent here.
Absolutely.
He travels all 3 floors, really kind of seems to help keep an eye on the jail, as well as, the some of the more ornery inmates who are in here. Am I leaving somebody out?
Well, Beth, the female spirit of Beth, we're not sure who Beth is. One of the first investigations that Miranda and I did here, we were just kind of throwing out names, and we threw out the name Beth, and all of a sudden all of our K2s indicated that was a name we should pursue. So every time we have a team here or we're doing a public ghost hunt or something like that, we encourage everybody to say the name Beth, and a majority of the time we get some type of response to Beth. So we're not sure who she is, but we do think that there's a spirit named Beth here.
Yeah, and to kind of tag on here to what Vicky's saying, she said big man or big boy. We've since found out that we believe his name is Roy, actually, Big Roy. So we're still, I mean, the jail's been in existence for 120 years. It was in operation for that amount of time. So you've had a lot of inmates that have cycled in and out of here. So there are a lot of different names and stuff that we've been able to kind of hit on. So yeah, I mean, we're still continually looking. That's probably going to be a search that we're working on for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who haven't seen it, you want to go ahead and show the video quickly. So we'll just go ahead and show this footstep videos again for those who haven't seen it. And if you hear a noise in the background, that's Sally snoring.
What is that? This is the front of the building, right? Hey, is that you? Oh, what is that? What is that noise? What was that? This is the front of the building, right? Oh, what the hell is that? What is that noise? What was that? This is the front of the building, right? Hey, is that you?
Yeah, so very interesting. As Sandra said, sticky shoes on the bottom of the shoes. Absolutely, that's exactly what we hear. So that third camera angle. So again, the Jailer's Walk is a long Jailer's Walk, and it's got a junction in the middle of the building. So Miranda had a camera on this end of the Jailer's Walk and this end of the Jailer's Walk. That third camera is pointing down that hallway and that junction. And so that's where Sarah Jane and her sister Deborah were sitting. And it sounds like that is where the footsteps are heading, because a jailer would typically shuffle step right there to turn and make that turn and go down the hallway. So that's why, we think that's triangulating it. We think it's walking down the hallway toward that junction, shuffle steps, and then you hear Sarah, and then it starts a couple more steps. And again, just to us, it's just fascinating that we were able to capture it.
Yeah, I mean, you can clearly tell that it's there. So the first camera going down if you're standing there looking at the front of the building, it'd be the left side if you're looking at the front of it. And so you can tell it's clearly on that side. And now specifically, whenever I put the cameras up, I stuck one inside of the bullpen on the right, and then in the Jailer's Walk on the left. And as Christy said, there in the center. So you can definitely tell it gets closer to the center, and you can tell it's over in that left side
Yeah.
of the Jailer's Walk, which that's where we heard it before.
Right.
When we were doing some of the different stuff. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm excited to maybe leave some more cameras and some more audio recorders up there around that time,
Right.
because usually, like tonight, we've got a ghost walk, but it starts at 9 and we'll be outside. So
Right. And Vicky, yes, it was on the third floor. This is all on the maximum security level.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was
So
something exciting that happened last week.
yeah, definitely. And so looking forward to going through that evidence a little bit more and seeing what was captured, because I know Sarah and Debbie captured that on their recorders. So I think they had their recorders like mobily on them, correct?
Right. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious to hear what it sounds like on further inside that hall as
Exactly.
to what they were hearing. So
Yep. Absolutely.
so yeah, so that's going on. A couple
Yeah.
other really cool things that we've got going on. Like we said, if you want to go back and watch the Paranormally Blonde episode, you'll hear us talking about the investigation, pre-investigation, and the jail. So definitely go and check that out.
Yep.
But I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here about something that I'm really excited about that we've
Hmm.
got coming up is
Yep.
this.
So for July, our theme for our ghost walks is and our flashlight tours is red, white, and blue. And so what we're going to do all through the month of July, especially the weekend of July 4th, we'll be highlighting some various crimes like murders and such. That'll be the red. We're going to highlight the courage of our officers, and that'll be the white. And blue is obviously our spirit. So July is going to be a very spirited and festive month here at the historic Scott County Jail. So if you want to book a flashlight tour or one of our ghost walks or come and do a ghost hunt with Miranda and I, check out our schedule because we're really excited about our red, white, and blue tours that we're going to be doing for July.
Yeah, and that might actually even carry on throughout the entire summer, just because, we've got so many cool things planned. We've got the new calendar up, and as we mentioned in the last show, we've got the calendar open through the end of the year. So if you're looking to get those investigations booked for October, September, going into spooky season, we've got those open. We're also working on getting everything together for our paranormal research study.
Yes.
It did end to the public on May 31st, but we've been doing a couple little things here ourselves. And then also got to get with the detective
Hmm.
and then figure out exactly how we want to release the findings of that study. So I am so excited to
Me
find that
too.
out
Me
and see
too.
what we got. So we'll be we'll be putting that out there so you guys won't miss it or anything. We'll be sharing that information, and hopefully the jail spoke to some of our investigators.
I hope so too. So we'll be, like Miranda said, getting with the detective. He's actually in the process, or he just moved, so
Mhm.
he's got a lot going on in his personal life. So to get with him, we're gonna get our schedules together, sit down with him, go through everything, and we're very excited. We will be sharing that with you. So Sheila Brown, it is coming. I promise.
Yeah, so we've got that. As Christy said, our ghost walks, those have kicked off really well. We had a really great ghost walk last night.
Yep.
Some locals actually, always
Hmm.
fun to have locals in here. They were able to actually share some history with us about some of the folks who actually lived here in the jail when it was the
Hmm.
jailer's quarters. So they shared some of that information as well as just a fun group, and our spirits, it seems like, I mean, they just really enjoy the fun nature of some of these folks that come in and do the ghost walks and the
Hmm.
flashlight tours with us.
Yeah. The
Got a
night
group.
prior, yeah, the night prior, we
Yeah.
had 13 people on the walk here. And again, a great group of people. We had 5 that were local, 8 that were from Wisconsin. Just couldn't have asked for a nicer group of individuals to take the flashlight tour with us. So we're really excited about them. And thank you all for the kind reviews that you left us. Very active night that night as well. And they're just fun. These ghost walks and our flashlight tours are just fun.
Yeah, yeah, I enjoy the flashlight tours because it's a great way to share not just the history,
Mhm.
and it's a very intimate tour.
It is.
You get to share the ghost stories, get to share the history, and then also kind of do a little mini session. And
Mhm.
that's the difference too. Also, because you hear us talk about flashlight tours, ghost walks, and ghost hunts. The ghost walks that we're doing, those are 2 hours long, and it's about a 45-minute walk around Huntsville.
Mhm.
We've got some really unique history here in Huntsville, Tennessee, as well as Scott County in and of itself. And so we take you on a tour of the square here, telling about some of the really cool things that's happened here in Huntsville with its establishment, as well as Scott County itself. So we've got one of those coming up tonight, and that's
Mhm.
why we're kind of doing an abbreviated show. We got a group coming from out of Chattanooga, Tennessee,
Yep.
so they're coming up here, and we're really excited to have them. But I want to show you a little something that Christy and I have been working on today, well, and over
Mhm.
the last little bit. But we've got quite a few new exhibits in here to
We
the
do.
jail, and we've actually sort of so many that we're actually having to rearrange some of the pieces here in the museum. So if you've come in before already, it's going to look a little bit different whenever you come back.
Mhm.
But let me go ahead and get this pulled up here. I'm just beyond excited and thrilled
Mhm.
about this.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit on our law enforcement appreciation podcast that we did for that week. But we had an incident here in 2003 where an off sergeant John Yancey was killed by his partner Marty Carson. They were entering a suspected meth lab, and Officer Marty Carson, shot and killed his partner John Yancey. No charges were ever filed against, no criminal charges were ever filed against Marty Carson. In a civil trial, he was found guilty of intentionally killing John. But his widow, John's widow, Lori Yancey Ellis, she has been very gracious and shared John's uniforms with us. So we have those on display now. We're going to do a very robust tribute to him. We've got some newspaper articles, the original newspaper articles about that shooting and that incident, along with a GQ magazine that was written, a magazine article that was written in 2008 about the incident. So we're really highlighting that here in the jail because it's something that we're really proud of, and we're really touched and humbled that Lori allowed us to display these uniforms.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just a real honor to be able to have those on display here and to be able to share the story. Um, let me.
But it's interesting timing because a podcast, a national podcast, is actually just started related to this incident here in Scott County. It's called Witnessed Friendly Fire. The host name is Sean Flynn, and he's actually the guy that wrote the GQ magazine article, and he's the host of the show. And it is a fascinating podcast. Up every Monday. So 2 episodes have dropped so far. They interview Lori, John's widow. They actually interview drug addicts. They interview other officers, and it is a very fascinating look at this story. So we highly recommend, if you listen to podcast, if you listen to True Crime Podcast, go and listen to Witness Friendly Fire, because it talks about John, and you can relate that back to the uniforms that we have here in the jail.
Yeah, apparently it goes into a lot of the witness testimony as well as a lot of the stuff from the investigation that people don't really know. And so we've found a lot of different articles on this while we've been going through those huge stacks of newspapers that we're
Mhm.
working on getting this out. But what's so fascinating about this is that Sean Flynn, he does an amazing job of putting you into the moment, setting the scene, and really sharing this story. And so I'm just absolutely riveted.
Mhm.
I've gotten 2 episodes in, and I want to binge it, but unfortunately it comes out every week. So yeah, it's fascinating. If you want to get the whole story, definitely check that out. And then
Mhm.
also come here to the jail and see the uniforms and see the newspaper articles.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the fact that she graciously allowed us to display those, cannot thank her enough, because it is a story that is a blight on Scott County, right? There's so many sides and so many intricate weavings of stories just related to this incident, and it really is something that is unique to Scott County. This one incident, and to be able to highlight it here at the jail, it's something that we're really proud of.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, so I mean, we've got that we're working on. We've got several other uniforms and
Mhm.
pieces that we were able to put up, able to highlight the rescue squad,
Mhm.
the Big South Fork Interagency. We've got some early displays from when Scott County became established.
Mhm.
We were sharing some of those. Those tie in to when the jail was built. Whenever you do one of our walking tours, we really kind of tell you why the jail is built the way it is and why it was built at the time it was. So we're working on some of those displays. So just a great time here. We really appreciate all the people who have donated these items or put items on loan to us.
Mhm.
Really appreciate that. And if anyone has a moonshine still, we want to talk
Yes.
to you.
Yes. call us. Number on the
Yes.
screen.
Yeah, we are
Please reach
looking
out. We're
for,
looking for a moonshine still.
yeah. So,
Even a replica, a little replica diorama, anything like that. We really need one of those to highlight.
yeah. Or if you can build one custom for us,
Yeah.
whatever. We're looking at that because, our early inmates, really from the start of the jail up until about the 60s, was all moonshiners. And
Hmm.
so yeah, we're definitely looking for a moonshine still. If anybody has a lead
Yeah,
on
that
that they can give us.
yeah, if you have a backwoods uncle that you don't talk about that's out there doing that stuff, we'd like to talk to him, please.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I think that's a pretty much about everything. Like I said, we've got a tour tonight that we've got to get ready for here in the
Hmm.
next 30 minutes. And we've got a bunch of those. We've actually extended the event schedule. I know we've got some different events up through September. Now that's not all of them. We are adding some different ones, but we've got flashlight tours and ghost walks on there up through September. I think we've even had some people who have already booked some
Hmm.
flashlight tours at the end of July.
Yeah.
So if you don't see a date on there and you're interested in bringing your family for a private flashlight tour or a private ghost walk, or if you've just got a couple people, you're going to be in town that day and you want us to see if we can actually open it up for a public,
Hmm.
give us a call, send us a message, and we'll do that. Go ahead and get the tickets booked. So don't fret if you don't see the date on there. Go ahead and check with us because I know we've got some people who are traveling that's been interested in some dates. So
Hmm. Absolutely. So.
so
But as Miranda said, we are going to do a ghost walk here in just a few. So we've got those people coming in here in about 15 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But thank you, everybody, for hanging with us tonight and just kind of sitting down and listening to our stories and watching the footsteps and all of that. So as Miranda said, book a tour if you want to come over. 4th of July is going to be a blast. They do a great celebration here in Huntsville. So if you have nothing to do and you're in the Huntsville, Tennessee area, come on over. We'd love to see you. But otherwise, we hope everybody has a great evening.
yeah, we're going to be having some games and stuff here on the 4th of July, some different things. Everyone's going to be up at the mall, but take a few steps on down over the hill here. Come see us at the jail.
Mhm.
And also, I think we probably need to mention, the podcast here with the Jailhouse
That's
Informant.
right.
So we're doing that on Sunday nights. The next couple Sunday nights, we've actually got ghost walks and investigations, some out of town stuff booked for the next couple. Plus, we've got 4th of July coming up. So we won't have a Jailhouse Informant for probably the next, maybe
2 weeks,
weeks.
2 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will still be popping on here with some different stuff. We may even pop on live or something with some of the
Mhm.
cool things that we're doing on 4th of July or 3rd of July, actually. But we are looking at some different options. When we do finally come back, we may kind of change things up just a little bit because we want to have some good guests on here to talk about some of the true crime stories as well as some of the cool things we've got going on. But so there may be a little bit of revamping that's going on over those next 3 weeks, just to kind of let you guys know, because we want to make sure we're putting out good quality programming that you want to tune in and listen to, but also not just coming on to talk, but also have some things going on. So we're going to be looking at revamping that and maybe be a little bit different whenever we come back in a couple weeks.
Yep.
So, but as Christy said, we'll go ahead and get off here and get ready for tonight's walk. And again, thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Have a great night.